Welcome, everyone. This is a presentation on tips for parent-teacher conferences for elementary school families. My name is Lorna Gilmore, and we have Ina Gangerdi here with us. We are part of the Issaquah Equity and Family Partnership Department. So, as many of you know, and that's why you're attending here, parent-teacher conferences are coming up on November 8th and 9th. There will be no school on those 2 days. You should already have signed up for a conference for about a 20-minute slot with the teacher. And if you have not, please let us know and we can help you with that. What's important for families to know that even though it says conference, it is actually a one-on-one meeting with a teacher. So this is completely private, a conversation with you and the teacher for 20 minutes. And that's what's going to happen. It's a time for you and the teacher to talk. It's going to happen in the teacher's classroom. And so make sure that you're on time. If you have need an interpreter to help you, please make sure you let the teacher know or let us know, and we will make sure the teacher is going to hire one for you. It might be a phone interpreter, it might be an interpreter via a video call, but we are able to get one to support parents at no cost to the parents. It's part of your rights as a parent. During this meeting, you will be able to discuss information about your child in a private conversation with the teacher, and it is about conversations around academics, social and emotional behavior, or if you have questions around um, social, emotional, and behavior progress. So, why is this important? It's important because you are a partner in education. Teachers are educating your child at school, but you are also a partner and you support your child after school hours on weekdays. Weekends, you know a lot of information about your child. So we want to partner with you. So this is a great opportunity for you to share information with the teacher regarding your child or to learn more about what you can do to support your child at home. Or maybe you want to ask questions and you have some concerns or just want to know more about a certain factor. So you're going to ask questions of the teacher. Really, we want this to be more of a dialogue between you and the teacher, or the teacher's, sharing some information. Maybe you're asking questions, the teacher might ask questions. So it's really a conversation between you and that teacher. Now, the important thing is there's only one scheduled or planned meeting date per year. That does not mean you cannot talk to the teacher for the rest of the school year. Of course, definitely, you are welcome to email the teacher at any time and ask to have some time to either in a phone call conversation or a meeting. But this is the one time that you have a planned, guaranteed time where the teachers have time. School is off for the elementary school students to make this happen. So that's why it's really important that all parents attend that. Now, you don't have to go in, it does not have to be in person. If you have concerns for health reasons, or you're working in Seattle or somewhere far away and you're not going to be able to drive down for just 20 minutes back and forth, you can ask for your meeting to be via a Zoom meeting or
Lorna,
worse,
1 second.
yes.
You're not sharing screen.
Oh, thank you. There you go. Thank you. So we want to make sure that you are able to have this conversation. So you're welcome to do it in person. That's the preferred way, or on Zoom or a telephone call, as long as we make it possible. Because as a school, we really want to make sure that we have time for the teacher and you, as the parent, to have this conversation. So there is a special kind of conference that happens often during fourth and fifth grade. Nearly all the schools in our district do that. So find out if your students are going to be doing something called a student-led conference at your school. I know that my daughter did it in fifth grade, and I don't remember if she did it in fourth grade. I don't think she did. And during that time, the child actually creates a special PowerPoint with the help and guidance of the teacher, and the child will share this PowerPoint presentation with information as to what's going on at school. So keep in mind, as the child is doing this presentation, you still have time to ask questions of the child or of the teacher so that you have the information you need for that. Oops, sorry, I had an unwelcome visitor come to me. Um, so, what is discussed? The teacher will share the child's academic, behavioral, and social progress, but it's very important that you, as a parent, also use this time to ask questions, share any concerns, talk about goals. A couple of the things to remember is because this is really targeted to families who are culturally and linguistically diverse. I myself, as a child who grew up in India, very often we focus on certain goals, and our education system was different. So it was very much information and knowledge based. And also, when we got our reports, it was about how well we did. You know, what was my rank, getting third in the class, or how did I rank compared to others? Over here in the United States, especially actually in the Issaquah school district, all of it is standards based. So you will see the teacher very often refer to standard based grading. So because of that, you might want to be familiar with what are the standards of children in that grade level. So when the teacher is talking about the standards based, you know what to expect or what is the expected standard for that child. And if you're not, you can clarify that information. I can also share some information with you about what standards are for each grade level. But it's about the standards and if the child is meeting those standards at that grade level. In schools, in ISD, we also work on the whole child development. So we really look at the behavior, the social and academic, social and emotional well being of the child. And so during the course of this, the teacher might share some evidence and some information regarding these different parts of your child's growth. They might also show you samples of your child's reading or writing or math work so that you have some more information. Now, very often some teachers post a lot of information on Seesaw, so you're well aware of that. But this is another time to get some of this information from the parent, from the teacher, sorry, from the teacher. So, preparing for conferences. One of the things we always tell our parents is what can you do to prepare for the conference? Because again, it is 20 minutes long. So you want to make sure that you have done your homework and you're ready to ask questions to make the most of this time with the teacher. So what we usually suggest to parents is before you go to the conference, couple days, a week or so before, ask your child some information about school. You know, what do you like the most? What's your favorite subject or the lesson? What are things that you're good at? What does a teacher do to help you? What are other students like in class? Who do you play with? You know, what's going on? What do you do during recess time to get some information? Because you want to make sure that your child is doing well socially, has friends, has positive interactions, behaviorally, and also academically. So that's one of the things that you can do in having a conversation with your child and just learning more because many of you might already be having conversations with your child. I'm sure you are. But you know, asking some targeted questions to help you better understand what's going on in the class. Next, you might want to uh, discuss and prepare some things and find out what do you want. Okay, so here are some parents ask me what are some of the best or worst questions to ask or what can I ask. Things to really consider asking your child's teacher would be things like what sharing with the teacher what your child enjoys about school and the classroom, so giving them some feedback. Other things to really talk to them about would be something like what is most challenging for your child. So if there's a concern you have, you know, talking about that, what is challenging for them. You can always also share with your teacher the child's strengths. So the teacher knows your child like you do, like they're really strong in this. This is some area that they enjoy doing or are good at doing, or in areas that are difficult. So the teacher is aware of that. And also you know your child, so you know how your child did in previous grades. So you can share with your teacher what has helped your child learn successfully in the past with you, how the things go. So parents are really encouraged to ask and talk to teachers and discuss questions they might have. One of the biggest suggestions we have for you is, if you can, please remember to write down your questions. Personally, I would write them down on a paper and then just take a photo of it. So during the conference, I remember what my questions are, because sometimes parents go to the conference and there's so much happening and they are busy having a conversation with the teacher. It's great, good relationship building, but then you forget those important questions. So, one of the other tips I would definitely share with you is, as your meeting starts, let the teacher know, hey, I also have, choose two or three questions. These three questions I want to share to make sure that we get to before the end of our conference time, and being aware of the time so that you have time to get to your questions. Because the teacher is going to share some stuff with you, important, but your information and questions are also important, because this is a two-way partnership. This is both of you working together to the benefit of your child. So if you want to write some questions down, write some feedback from your child down, information that you're not sure about, stuff like that, it's really helpful during the course of this conversation. So other things to do to prepare for the conference. So you might also want to consider, if you have not already, look at their backpack and see if they have had any homework being sent home. Um, every week, your child is coming back with some papers with them. So check and see what kind of papers. The other one is, if you have not already gone to Seesaw, some teachers use Seesaw a lot more than others. So find out if your teacher uses Seesaw very often, because if they do, they might be posting evidence of your child's work, they're writing samples, and they also might be giving feedback, because there's a section in Seesaw for teachers to make comments. So you want to see what the teacher is saying to your child, or what kind of comment they're giving, because it is one of the ways teachers are using to communicate with a parent. And then again, reminder that if you need an interpreter, the school can provide one for you using video or a phone interpreter. Sometimes they can do in-person interpreters. Right now, it's really hard to find them, especially for 20-minute slots. Oops, I skipped a slide. So on Monday, in the ISD bulletin, there was an email, the ISD bulletin that is, that talked about checking your test scores. Now, this only applies to families who have children in grades first grade to fifth grade. And what that said in that email was, your child's fall iReady scores were ready, and they were available for you to see in Family Access. So if you go to Family Access on the website, Family Access, and you're going to get your landing page, and on your landing page, you're going to look for test scores. You're going to click on test scores, and you're going to get this box. This is for my child from last year. So it was released around the same date. So you're going to click on this blue link that says show scores, and you'll be able to see it. And if you have not done this before or in the future, just note that these scores are released 3 times a year. It'll be released in fall, again in winter, and again in spring. So iReady is an assessment test the district uses to really assess and find out how your child is progressing academically. And using that data, it really helps the teacher support your child better and address the needs of your child, especially through small group work that they do in their classrooms. Or iReady also has specific lessons they can assign to students based on where they are. So it's a very responsive test for students. So in looking at the scores, so here's an example of the scores that you might be seeing. And remember, you're going to see scores for both for math and for reading. Now, if your child is in fourth and fifth grade, and if your child was in a school in April, May, June, your child might also have SBA scores. But if your child is new or if your child is in grades kindergarten through 3, you're not going to see the SBA scores, so no worries at all. Now, for the fall iReady scores, what you're going to see is you're going to see an overall score, and the numbers range from 1 to 4. Now, if your child has 3 and above, great. Your child is doing well and your child is at standards. If the score is below 3, then that indicates that your child is below grade level. That means your child is not at standards as what they should be at that time of the year. Okay. So they're saying that your child should be at a 3 or above in September, October of the school year. So in winter, when they give it to you, the test is slightly different. It's now assessing for how your child is doing during the winter time. And then in spring, again at that time. If your child's score is similar, that's fine. That's okay because that means that's where your child is doing through the course of the year. If your child's score goes up, that means they're doing even better than they did at the previous test. And if your child's score goes down, that's something kind of to watch and see if it's a trend or if it's a one-time blip, because sometimes they might not have breakfast, they're angry at their classmate, they're just having a bad day, they're elementary school kids after all. So what I also love is they also give you more detailed information in these iReady scores. So you can also see in the numbers operation, algebraic thinking, measure data, geometry. How did my child do in these subsections? They're called domains. Or in reading, it's also vocabulary, comprehension, and informing text. Um, I think it's literature text. And then finally, it's the Lexile score, and the Lexile score is their reading level. So it kind of tells you a little bit more information about your child's reading scores, and that can be very important. Um, when you look at that, when you go to the test scores family access, you should also visit, if you have a chance, the website and look at the website because it'll give you a lot more detail as to how your child is doing. So you can see over here, it shows you the scale, tells you a little bit information about what the scores mean. And then also over here, you can use this information. Let's say your child is below 3 and you're like, oh, I'd like my child to do a little bit more practice. If that's true, there's an iReady MyPath for you to use these resources at home to kind of get up to speed. So if you're not quite sure what I'm saying, or if you want to hear more information about this, you are welcome to talk to your child's teacher next month, the 8th or the 9th. Spend some more time reading this, or you can talk to one of the liaisons and they can give you a little bit more information about this. There's more information also about understanding the 4-point scale, the Lexile score, all of that information here. Lexile score is more about reading. So I know that I did not grow up in this country and only started going to school in the United States in middle school. So I did not have the US reading kind of concept and how that is done. So I never used Lexile score. And when I had my own children, I realized how important it was to know Lexile score or their FNP or some kind of level to see how to choose the book. You know, we want to choose a book based on, is the book something that the student can access so they can understand. So the school can give you information regarding your child's FNP, which is Pontus and Panella, their reading level, what level they're at, and also their Lexile score. And then that tells you at what grade should they be at different scores. And that also helps you in reading their book, because of finding and choosing the right book. So you can see the title of this thing is called How to Use the Lexile Score to Find a Good Fit Book for Your Student. Because students go to the library every week. You might be taking your kids to the library, you might be buying books for them. The thing is, this was a problem I had. I didn't quite understand how the system worked. I was buying my daughter books or getting books from the library, but when she started taking more ownership in what she was more interested in, very often one of my daughters would bring books home that she couldn't quite read. They weren't in her Lexile level, and that's fine. But knowing how much guidance they have and also guiding your child and helping them choose, giving them some options, showing them what sections, or even for you as you're deciding what books to read or what series to expose them to, knowing what's their Lexile score. So, for example, if you knew that level M books, that's your Magic Treehouse books, are usually level MN books. So knowing that, okay, my child is MN, so they should be reading those Magic Treehouse books in second and third grade. And maybe if they're reading it in first grade, if this level reading is not as high, they might struggle a little bit. And this, for me as a parent, I might want to do some more guided reading. So this is the kind of information that you can get from your child's iReading scores on uh, in Family Access. The other thing, also, you can find out more information about My Ready Path by going to the website to see what is My Ready and getting some tips over here. And there are some directions in many different languages. And finally, the one last tip give for you is chances are your child, if you have not done Clever with your child or seen your child access Clever at home, that's something you might want to talk to them about. You might want to ask your child, do you go on the computer and access Clever? Do you use Zern? Or what kind of apps do you use on Clever? So Clever is something your child can be doing at home. I know when my daughter was in in elementary school, not kindergarten, she would come home and when she was younger, have books read to her on Clever. She loved doing iReady and Zern at home. She liked watching some brain pop short videos. But the thing that really, in retrospect, I feel like I should have pushed more is having her do more typing practice. And I think around third or fourth grade, they have a typing app on Clever and it's free. Sometimes you have to pay for certain apps, but this one is linked to your child's Clever account. So all the passwords are in there, so you don't have to remember all the many passwords that we have sometimes nowadays. And so that allows your child to use the app and practice their typing skills so they can type well rather than doing the pecking thing that many people do. So now you've done all your prior homework. You've talked to your child, you kind of thought about what's going on with them, you've written down the questions you might have, you've looked at your child's test scores, you've looked at their Clever Seesaw account, you are aware of what books they're reading and some of their struggles, and now you're ready and you're primed and ready to go to the conference. So now what? So at the conference, we would highly recommend that you be on time or if possible, 5 minutes early. Because as you saw, conference schedules are 20 minutes long. So let's say you come in for 5 minutes late, your conference time is now only 15 minutes because the next parent is ready to go. And I have seen parents get upset at teachers if conferences don't start on time. So, just note that the teacher might not be able to give you extra time if you're not on time for the meeting. So the teacher will start and initiate the meeting. You can find out before the meeting, if possible, if there will be other teachers also in attendance of that meeting, because your child might also be working with an MLL teacher, which is the multilingual language teacher. We used to call them ELL in previous days, so will that teacher be there? If your child receives special education services, will that teacher be there or available? And also, will the title lab, so if your child is getting reading or math interventions, will that teacher be there? And if those teachers are not there, you could email them, let them know what day you're coming to the conference, and just ask, hey, would you have time for me to stop by for about 5 or 10 minutes and have a conversation with you regarding my child's progress? And as I mentioned earlier, as you start the meeting, after the teacher starts the meeting, I would be sure to let them know that you have some questions that you are interested in finding out more about. And so just to make sure that we save time, that you and the teacher save time at the end of the meeting for them so that we can make sure we have about a 5 minute leeway because the teacher might be interested in sharing some resources, which they can always email to you rather than talk through. So, you need to prioritize what's important because, again, that 20-minute marker, be aware because my first couple meetings, they went really fast. And you sometimes walk out and as you're walking around, you're like, oh, I should have asked this question. I should have asked this question. Or sometimes you go home and you're talking to your child and then your child will tell you information. You're like, what? I didn't know that. I wish I'd known that going into the meeting, right? So we're just trying to make sure we're ready for that. The teacher will have some sort of general agenda in the sense that they will be, welcoming you. They're going to show you this piece of data, whatever. So just note that your teacher might have agenda too. So be sure that you're working together so that your questions fit into what they are sharing. Now, I'm going to show you two role play videos. And these role play videos, you can think about what you're seeing in each of them, and we'll talk more as to why I'm sharing these videos with you.
Have a few things to show you for today. Okay, so here's some of your math scores. She did very well. And then over here I have some of her writing that she's been working on. And she does need to work a little bit more on her conventions and stuff. They did finish their opinion writing recently, and Elena had a good voice, but she does need to work on using more transition sentences. But in general, she wrote really good. This is our calendar for the year. We do have a field trip upcoming in March, so we want to go ahead and get that paperwork filled out. Thank you so much.
So that's video one, and so let's look at video two.
Lorna, the audio isn't clear. Actually, there's no sound now.
You can't hear it?
Yeah, well, now it's very choppy. It's just coming in and out.
I'm going to pause at that. The teacher said, do you have any questions before we start? And the parent asked questions and started asking some information. So video two is to show you some examples of how a back and forth conversation could look like. And you can think about yourself, which one do you think is more beneficial for a parent and how do you want to show up at the conference? Do you want to listen? Do you want to ask more questions? And I want to also encourage you to ask more questions and let you know that it's completely okay and we encourage that.
I actually think that and so then back with each other in a little bit here and then see how she's progressing. That's great. Thank you.
So if you didn't hear that question, the parent asked, does she have friends? And the teacher is answering.
Of course, she does. I get to see her at lunch. She's talking with her friends. She works with her crafting class, and so she works really well with groups. She always participates in our class discussion. She raises her hand.
there's no sound. Do you want to recap?
And the teacher,
So for the second question, the parent said, is how is she learning? Is she learning what she needs to know for the unit? They were doing math, how is it going? And so the teacher answered, yes, she is learning. Elena is a MLL, ELL student, and the MLL teacher comes in to support her, and they're working on certain strategies to better help her understand, and they're talking about the strategies.
make sure that she's understanding and her written that she's getting to understand.
Okay, and this question, the parent is asking, what are some volunteer opportunities in the classroom? And now the teacher's answering. So the parent said that she's enjoying the teacher, and then she asked if the teacher could meet with her again in a few months.
Check on
And the teacher said yes, after the next unit, they could check in with each other and see how she's progressing on her math skills.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming in.
So of course, this is just a demonstration, but one of the reasons we share this video with families is when I first got this job and I started working with parents and I would meet with parents and talk to them about how things were going, they would say that, they're so frustrated because they didn't really understand what was going in the class. And I'd say, oh, did you talk to the parents at conferences? And they're like, yeah, but the teacher just was talking and telling me what to do, and I didn't get a chance to talk to the teacher. And we're like, no, you really need to ask. As parents, it's okay to ask. So we know that many families, especially families coming from other countries whose culture it was not normal to ask teacher questions, or to even a part of their school system is not about having private one-on-one meetings with the teacher. It is a new concept, and if it's part of your deep culture, you might be very hesitant about asking teachers questions, about participating in a back and forth conversation with the teacher. So we really wanted to do this presentation to encourage you as parents to ask questions. But we also wanted to help you set yourself up for success in what questions to ask. So giving you some tips on what kind of things to look for and what kind of questions that might work in working with the teachers. So one of the parents said in their questions, what is the best question or the worst question to ask? And honestly, there is no best question. It really depends on what you want to know and what you want to get out of this conference. If your child is doing well, you might want to talk to the teacher as to what apps on Clever or what other suggestions she might have to help your child explore, enrich their learning. If your child is struggling, same thing. The teacher, of course, is going to respond very often. They most likely will suggest things that are already in Clever. So if you're ready with Clever and you've kind of familiarized yourself, you can ask questions that are more targeted. So you might want to say, if I use this app, or what app on Clever, she's doing this. Do you have any suggestions, or what's the starting point? So how can you be better prepared for those questions? Another question that was asked was, what can the teacher answer and what can they not answer? So anything to do with your child, the teacher can totally answer, but the teacher can talk about other students. So they can say, oh, so and your son are having a problem and blah, blah, giving you details about other children in the class. Because you can imagine it's because of confidentiality. The teacher can talk about other students in the class. So they'll only talk about your child, and they will refer to other students in vague general terms regarding behavior or any other concerns. So that's what the teacher can do. So give you information about your child. What they can also do is they also can talk about ranking. Very often, as a teacher, Even in middle school, parents would ask me, well, how's my child doing? And I'd say, oh, they're doing well. They're getting an A. No, no, no. How's my child doing? And I'm like, they're getting an A and they're doing well. But they were really looking, and I learned later, is they wanted to know because in many countries students are ranked. They wanted to know the ranking of their child in my class, and we don't have that. Even if a teacher wanted to, they couldn't. It doesn't exist. That information definitely in kindergarten through eighth grade. In high school, sort of, if you look at GPA, and even that is not comparable because everyone's taking different classes. So how do you, it's like comparing apples and oranges. So honestly, kindergarten through 12th grade, there is no ranking per se. So the teacher is always going to respond in terms of standards, if your child is at standards or not at standard. And they might be talking in terms of being on standards for that, or looking at the iReady, what they're doing, and talking to you about your child, not about other students in the class. So after the conference, so you've talked to your child about, when you go home, you might want to talk to your child again about about the conference, about, and giving them, what did you learn, what is going to be helpful for you. Let your child know if you came up with any plans or goals to help your child, because it's possible the teacher might check in with the child and the child might think, oh, did I do something wrong? Why is the teacher asking me this or doing this with me? So your child is also a key member. You are all a team, the teacher, you, and the child, in helping them. So if you let the child know and in on the plans, so you can all work together. You can also email your teacher, you know, in the next month or a couple months later, and follow up with some questions that happened, and let the teacher know that, hey, I want to keep on, this discussion maybe via email or a phone call. And so you can let them know in a couple months as to do a check-in. Talk to your child about what they did at school frequently. Check their backpacks. Very often we find that parents don't check their child's backpack as much, and they miss some crucial handouts and progress. Sometimes, by the way, when they get older, they might be hiding or not sharing some of those things that they should be bringing with you. So just check and have that conversation with them. Also, join PTA. PTA at school has many volunteer opportunities, and also you can learn about what's going on at school from other parents. If you have not done so already, please be sure to complete a volunteer application, because if you want to be in your child's classroom for some kind of event, even to be in the building during school hours, you need to be cleared as a volunteer. So let's say you're not really volunteering at PTA. This has nothing to do with volunteering at PTA per se. This is just being in the classroom for some activities. For example, for my daughter's school, she used to have something called Parents at Recess, where the first Friday of every month, parents were invited to be on the playground with kids. But if parents had not filled out and completed their volunteer application form, they could not get into the schoolroom, okay, or into the building. This has nothing to do about volunteering. It's called a volunteer application, but again, it's just a background security check to make sure that you should be allowed on campus, because these are our most precious people that we have to keep safe. So fill out your volunteer form, even if you don't plan on volunteering with PTA, because it just gives you the opportunity to be in the classroom for certain events, even, or recess, or lunch if you're allowed to come and have lunch. I know when I worked at Clark, we invited parents to have lunch with kids every couple months, and that's something that you can do only if you have your volunteer application completed. So, a couple reminders: be on time. Teachers have back-to-back meetings, so if you are late, your time slot will be shorter. Be sure to find childcare. This was another question that was asked. What are my childcare options? The school really doesn't have any options. I believe before and after school care does some teacher training and other activities at that time. So you can look around and see if there are any organizations doing childcare or doing any mini camps that day. Sometimes some faith-based organizations and other services have some sort of support for families for that time, during that time. if the conversation, especially if your child is not performing at a 3 level, you're welcome to email and contact the teacher in 2 or 3 months to request a meeting if you have questions about your child's progress so that you're having an ongoing conversation. The school will never not have another official parent teacher conference. So it's really up to you as a parent to initiate that contact and make the request. Also, if you need an interpreter, ask for it. And again, as anytime, if you have questions, especially around general understanding about the school system, policies, procedures, a family liaison can also help you. If it's about your child's academic progress in the class, teacher is the best person. If it's about social, emotional, or behavior, you very often can also reach out to the counselor. And it's about general school policy, understanding you're not quite sure how to report an incident or you want more information about clubs, which they don't have official clubs. Sometimes they have some activities, or what are your options for certain things. A family liaison might be able to help you answer some of those questions. And then I'm actually going to click this link. I don't really want to go to conferences, but signing up for parent-teacher conferences are on the website. So here are the directions. So hopefully you have done that already. And then what I really wanted to show you actually is elementary school learning. Earlier in this presentation, we talked about standards and what are the standards. So you can do your homework before you go to your conference and say, oh, my child is in, let's say, kindergarten. And what should my child be able to do while they're in kindergarten? So over here, it shows you the standards for kindergarten for all the different subjects. And remember, this is through the course of the year. So by the end of the year, they need to be doing this. In first grade, it shows you what they're supposed to be doing in first grade. Here's an overview. And then what should they be doing for writing, for math, for science? So all of that information for all of these subjects is over here. So if you're trying to figure out, well, what should my child be able to do to be at standards in first grade math? Here's some information. There's the tip sheets also, some standard practice problems for kids. It talks about Zern. Zern is a lot of my daughter, I would recommend it. There's some math games. So there are a lot of lots of resources. So, sometimes very often parents go to school conferences and ask teachers, can you give me some what am I trying to say? Some resources to help your child. But if possible, do your homework, know what's already available to you. So when you're asking for the resource, you can ask more targeted questions. My daughter loves to use, for example, you might say, Zern or math challenges. Can you tell me something specific that they should be working on that? Okay. Or on their reading, my child is having problems with their vocabulary. Is there some kind of, resource on Clever or somewhere for them to improve that? Or if they're working on math practice, what should they focus on in their math practice sets, practice problems? So you can see here lots of resources, but we just want to make sure that your child, you know what's available is what I'm trying to say, making sure we're doing our homework. Okay. So at this time, we are at the end of our presentation, and we have a QR code. If you have a computer, please click on the QR. If you have a phone next to your computer, please, you can scan the QR code and complete the feedback form. Otherwise, Ina will be putting the feedback form in chat. I would love your feedback because your feedback guides me in updating and improving my slideshow. Also, just understanding what parents are asking, because I share your questions that you're asking with teachers and with other staff members in general, because it helps them better understand what kind of questions parents are asking as they go into these conferences. And my last one is, for those of you who are new to the US school system or to the school, and you are wanting to connect more, next week we have one of 3 family connections meetings. The connections meeting, there are 2 opportunities to meet. We have an in-person in the district administration office and one in the evening. And this is the time for parents just to stop by and ask questions. Sometimes you have a question and you're like, I don't want to bother the teacher. This is not like I'm not quite sure who to ask, but you just have this question. Zoom on in and ask that in the evening, or if you want to stop by and ask us in person, we'll be there. All 3 liaisons and I will be there to ask and answer questions from parents. It's basically an open house to get more information about the school system. And with that, I thank you so much for coming, and I am going to stop the recording and sharing the website. By the way, on the slide deck, we'll also have some of these resources that you can use. And we have lots of resources and tips on our website, but eventually some of this information and the slide deck will be available for families in the resources. So I recommend you visit the resource page over here to get more information. This is all for high school, so don't stress out if you don't recognize these words or about Canvas and so forth. You're going to focus on this section right here with some resources to help you with understand school systems a little bit better. So I'm going to go back to this one, and I am going to stop the recording, and so that if you have any questions,